Yeah.
The truck didn't slow down. Its horn ripped through the chaos of Midtown Manhattan. Loud, urgent, too late. An elderly blind woman stood frozen in the middle of the crosswalk at 5th Avenue and 53rd Street. Her fragile frame caught between lanes of moving traffic. Her white cane trembled in her hand, tapping uselessly against the asphalt. The signal had already changed. Engines revved. People shouted. But she didn't move. She couldn't. "Ma'am!" Quote. A voice broke through the noise. A young woman sprinted from the sidewalk, her bag slipping from her shoulder, her breath catching as she ran straight into danger. She didn't think. She just moved. The delivery truck's brakes screamed, tires burning against the road, but momentum carried it forward. In a single, breathless second, the early 20s beautiful black woman reached the elderly stranger. She wrapped one arm around her thin shoulders and pulled hard. They stumbled backward. The truck roared past them. Inches away, wind lashed against their faces. Gasps erupted from the crowd. A driver shouted something angry, but it faded into the background. They were alive. The young woman's chest heaved as her heart pounded wildly. For a moment, she didn't let go, holding the elderly woman steady, grounding both of them in the fact that it was over. "You're safe," she whispered softly. "I've got you." The elderly woman clutched her sleeve tightly. I thought the light was still green," she said, her voice trembling. "I can't see anymore." The young woman pulled back slightly, her expression shifting as she really looked at her. The milky, unfocused eyes, the shaking hands, the thin coat that barely protected against the cold, shoes worn down from too many miles. And then, a low, painful sound. Her stomach growled. The young woman's gaze softened instantly. "You're hungry?" she asked gently. Tears welled in the elderly woman's eyes, slipping down her cheeks. "I haven't eaten since yesterday," she whispered. "My home. They forgot me. The staff left. I wandered out. I just wanted to feel the sun." The words hit hard. "Forgot me." The young woman swallowed, emotion tightening her chest around them. The city had already moved on. People rushing past, conversations continuing like nothing had happened. But for her, everything had changed. She glanced at her watch. 10 minutes. Her shift at Le Lumiere started in 10 minutes. Being late meant trouble. Another warning could cost her the job. And she couldn't afford that. Not with her little sister depending on her. For a split second, she hesitated. Then she made her choice. "Come with me," she said gently but firmly. "I work right here. I'll take you in the back and get you something warm to eat." The elderly woman looked uncertain. "You'd do that? For me?" Quote. The young woman gave a small, reassuring smile. "Of course," she said. "No one should be hungry." She bent down, picked up her bag, and took the elderly woman's hand. It was cold. Too cold. "I'm Zara," she added softly, guiding her toward the sidewalk. "And I'm not letting anything happen to you tonight." The elderly woman's grip tightened slightly. As if she believed her. As if, for the first time in a long while, she felt safe. Together, they moved through the restless streets of Manhattan. One leading, one trusting, toward the warm glow of La Lumiere. Neither of them knew it yet. But this moment, this single, selfless decision, was about to change everything. La Lumiere glowed like a jewel in the midtown evening, its tall windows spilling warm amber light onto the sidewalk. Inside, crystal chandeliers cast soft prisms across white tablecloths, and the murmur of well-dressed diners blended with the gentle strains of a jazz piano. But in the narrow back hallway, past the clatter of the bustling kitchen, Zara led the elderly blind woman to a quiet staff corner booth tucked behind a heavy velvet curtain. The space was simple, meant for hurried employee breaks. But tonight it felt like sanctuary. Zara eased the frail woman into the cushioned seat, then draped a clean wool blanket over her thin shoulders. The elderly woman's hands shook as they reached instinctively for the table edge. Searching for steadiness, Zara caught them gently, guiding them to rest in her lap. "You don't have to do anything," Zara said softly. her voice a calm anchor. Just let me take care of you. She disappeared for only a minute, returning with a steaming bowl of creamy potato leek soup, a small basket of warm sourdough bread, a pat of butter, and a glass of cool water. The aroma, comforting thyme, rich cream, fresh baked crust, filled the tiny space like an embrace. Zara sat close. Breaking off a piece of bread first, she buttered it lightly and placed it in the elderly woman's palms as she could feel its warmth and texture. Then she lifted the spoon, blew softly on the soup to cool it, and brought it carefully to the waiting lips. Potato and leek, Zara described in a low, soothing tone. It's smooth and velvety, with just a hint of thyme. Like walking through a garden after rain. There's a little cream that makes it feel like a hug in a bowl. The elderly woman took the spoonful. Her eyes fluttered closed even though sight had long left them. A single tear escaped, tracing a slow path down her wrinkled cheek. She swallowed, then let out a small, broken sound, half sob, half sigh of pure relief. You remind me of my boy when he was little, she whispered after the second spoonful. He'd sit so patiently on those sick days, letting me feed him soup just like this. Never complained, just looked at me with those big trusting eyes, like I was the center of his whole world. Zara's heart squeezed tight. She set the spoon down for a moment, brushed a stray silver strand from the elderly woman's forehead with infinite care. Tell me about him, she said quietly. I'm listening, all night if you need. The words came slowly at first, then faster, as if a dam long cracked had finally given way. He grew up to be a mid-30s handsome billionaire now. We lived in a fourth-floor walk-up in Brooklyn. No elevator. Stairs that creaked under our feet. His father left when he was 5. I cleaned houses by day, sewed curtains and dresses at night. Anything to keep the lights on and shoes that fit on his feet. But that boy, he was brilliant. Took apart broken radios and old computers from the trash. Rebuilt them better than new. Won every science fair. Teachers said he was gifted. I said he was mine. When the full scholarship to MIT came, I sold my mother's wedding ring, the only pretty thing I ever owned, to buy him a suitcase and a plane ticket. He hugged me at the airport gate and promised, Mama, one day I'm gonna buy you a house with a garden you can see from the kitchen. Roses, lilacs, whatever you want. For 2 years he called every Sunday. Then the calls slowed. Then they stopped. Money started arriving instead. Checks that grew bigger each month. But no visits. No voice. I wrote letters. Hundreds. They all came back undeliverable. He'd changed his world to fit success. I understood. I was heavy, old, in the way. My diabetes took my sight slowly. No insurance after he quietly stopped the coverage. I ended up in a rundown assisted living place in Queens. Staff overworked. They forgot meals sometimes. Medications. Me. Today they forgot me entirely. I wandered out, just wanting to feel the sun. Zara's own tears fell silently now. She picked up the spoon again. Fed another careful bite. He left you? She asked, voice thick. After everything? Quote, the elderly woman gave a small, sad smile. I don't hate him, child. I never could. I just miss the little boy who promised me a garden. I'd give anything to hear his voice one more time. To tell him I still love him. Even after all the silence. Zara squeezed the trembling hands gently. You're not alone tonight, she whispered. And tomorrow. We'll figure out tomorrow. The private dining room at La Lumiere was a world apart from the bustling main floor. A cocoon of dark walnut paneling, heavy velvet drapes, and low-hanging crystal pendants that cast pools of soft gold across the long mahogany table. 8 high-profile investors sat in tailored suits, laughing quietly over glasses of vintage Bordeaux, toasting the imminent close of a multi-billion-dollar merger that would solidify the handsome Billionaire's empire in AI-driven finance. At the head of the table sat the mid-30s handsome billionaire himself. Sharp jawline, piercing gray eyes, dark hair silvering at the temples in a way that only made him more striking. His charcoal wool suit was immaculate, cufflinks glinting like tiny stars. He had spoken little during the meal, nodding at the right moments, letting his lawyers carry the conversation. Success had taught him that silence commanded more respect than words. The sliding frosted glass door to the private room stood slightly ajar. Someone had cracked it earlier for fresh air, and no one had bothered to close it fully. From the hidden staff corner booth just beyond the curtained hallway, voices drifted in like smoke through an open window. At first, he registered them only as distant background. Soft, feminine, one young and warm, the other thin and trembling with age. He continued nodding at a point about projected ROI. Fork poised over his untouched salmon. Then a single phrase cut through the haze like a blade. Quote, "He promised me a garden." Quote, time fractured. The handsome billionaire's fork froze mid-air. The clink of silverware around him faded to nothing. His pulse slammed against his ribs. Once, twice, hard enough to make his chest ache. The investors kept talking, oblivious, but the world narrowed to that drifting voice. He set the fork down without a sound, murmured a quiet one moment, so low it barely registered. He rose smoothly, stepped into the hallway, and positioned himself just outside the doorway, half hidden behind a tall potted fiddle-leaf fig whose broad leaves screened him from view. Through the narrow gap in the foliage, he saw her. The early 20s beautiful black woman sat close to the elderly blind woman, holding her frail hands with gentle reverence. She listened with the stillness most people reserve for sacred things. The elderly woman spoke in a voice so achingly familiar it felt like a physical blow to his sternum. The same soft Brooklyn lilt that had once sung him lullabies during thunderstorms. The same patient cadence that had read him The Little Prince by flashlight when the power went out. Quote, "I don't hate him," the elderly woman was saying, tears glistening on her cheeks. "I never could. I just miss the little boy who promised me a garden. I'd give anything, anything, to hear his voice one more time. Just once. To know he's okay. To tell him I still love him. Even after all the silence." Each word landed like a stone dropped into still water. Ripples spread through the handsome billionaire's chest, cracking the ice he had spent 15 years perfecting. Memories surged unbidden. Her sewing patches onto his jeans at 2 a.m. so he wouldn't be ashamed at school. Her standing at the airport gate in 2008, waving until he disappeared down the jetway. Tears shining but smile steady. "Go shine, baby. Mama's right here waiting." He had never gone back. Checks had been easier. Annual updates from a private investigator who assured him she was cared for. He told himself it was mercy, sparing her the embarrassment of his new world, sparing himself the guilt. Now the guilt stood before him in full color. A blind, starving woman who still spoke of him with love instead of bitterness. The investors called his name. "Everything all right?" Quote, but the sound felt distant. Underwater. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe properly. Heat burned behind his eyes. Tears he hadn't shed since he was 12 and his father never came home. Across the restaurant, the beautiful young woman lifted her head slightly, as if sensing the shift in the air. She didn't see him, but the elderly blind woman tilted her face toward the doorway, sightless eyes searching instinctively. "Someone there?" she asked softly. The handsome billionaire's lips parted, but no sound came. Not yet. His hand pressed flat against the wall to steady himself. For the first time in 15 years, the man who had built an empire felt small. Smaller than the boy who once ran home to her arms. The investors' voices drifted from the private dining room. "Damon, you coming back?" Quote, but the mid-30s handsome billionaire heard nothing beyond the pounding in his own ears. He stepped forward from the shadowed hallway into the soft golden light of the corner booth. His polished shoes silent on the hardwood. For the first time in years, his confident stride faltered. His legs felt unsteady, breath shallow and ragged. The early 20s beautiful black woman looked up first, her warm brown eyes widening in startled recognition. She saw the tall, striking man in the charcoal suit, the same one who had been hidden behind the potted fig moments earlier. The elderly blind woman tilted her head slowly, sightless eyes searching the air, sensing the sudden thickening of the atmosphere around her. "Mom?" Quote. The word broke from him like glass shattering. Raw, trembling, barely audible, yet it seemed to echo through the entire restaurant. The elderly woman's frail hands flew to her face in disbelief. "Is that my boy?" Quote. He dropped to his knees right there on the polished floor beside her chair. His expensive coat pooled around him like surrendered armor, the tailored suit wrinkling without care. Tears flooded his chiseled features instantly. Hot, unrelenting streams tracing down his sharp jawline. The handsome face that had once stared impassively from Forbes covers now contorted with childlike anguish. "It's me," he choked out, voice cracking on every syllable. "I'm here. God forgive me. I'm here." He reached for her trembling hands, pressing them desperately to his wet cheeks as if they could anchor him. The words spilled in a rush, jagged and desperate. "I heard everything. Every word you said to her. I abandoned you. I told myself the money would take care of you. That checks were enough. That distance was kinder. I was wrong. I was a coward. A monster. You gave me everything. Your youth. Your dreams. Your mother's ring. Every sleepless night sewing by lamplight. And I repaid you with silence. With absence. With excuses." The elderly blind woman's gnarled fingers moved slowly, tracing the contours of his face with heartbreaking tenderness. The strong brow she had once smoothed during fevers. The high cheekbones that had been soft baby rounds. The jaw she had kissed goodnight thousands of times. "My baby," she whispered, voice quivering with wonder and old sorrow. "You came. I should have come years ago," he sobbed openly now, shoulders shaking violently. "I'm so sorry. For every missed Sunday call. Every returned letter. Every year I let you sit alone in the dark thinking I didn't care. I cared. I cared so much it terrified me. Because facing you meant facing what I'd become. I'll spend the rest of my life making this right. The best doctors tomorrow. Retina specialists. Endocrinologists. Whatever you need. A home with a garden you can touch and smell every single day. I'll read to you every night. I'll hold your hand until you fall asleep. I'll never, never leave you in the dark again." The beautiful young black woman stood a few steps back, one hand pressed to her mouth, tears streaming freely down her cheeks. She watched in stunned silence as the once untouchable billionaire knelt broken on the floor like a lost child. The restaurant had fallen utterly quiet. Diners lowered forks mid-bite. Waitstaff paused in their paths. Even the sommelier stood frozen, wine bottle in hand, all eyes fixed on the scene. The handsome man weeping without shame. The fragile elderly woman's face glowing with fragile hope. The beautiful young woman who had unknowingly ignited this moment. The handsome billionaire looked up at her through blurred tears, voice hoarse and thick with gratitude. "You saved her life today," he said. "Twice. Once from the street. And once from my neglect. Thank you doesn't begin to cover it." The beautiful young woman wiped her eyes, voice soft but steady. "Just love her now," she whispered. "That's enough." He nodded, fresh tears falling, then turned back to his mother. Gently, reverently, he pulled her thin frame into his arms, right there on the restaurant floor, rocking her slowly, the way she had once rocked him through every storm. "I'm home, Mom," he murmured into her silver hair. "And I'm never leaving again." That same night, under a sky streaked with the last rose gold of sunset, Damon carried his mother across the threshold of his Upper East Side penthouse. He held her as gently as if she were made of spun glass. Her thin arms looped loosely around his neck, her head resting against his shoulder the way it had when he was small and feverish. She breathed in slowly, the clean scent of marble floors, polished wood, expensive candles, and, faintly, something green and alive drifting from beyond the glass doors. "Home?" she whispered, voice small and wondering. "Our home now," he answered, throat thick. He didn't set her down right away. Instead, he carried her straight through the vast living room, past sleek furniture no one had ever truly lived on, and out onto the expansive rooftop terrace. He had made frantic calls that afternoon. Planters had been rushed in, soil still damp from delivery. Jasmine climbed fresh trellises. Lavender spilled over edges in soft purple waves. Pink and white roses stood in careful clusters. Herbs brushed against his legs as he moved. Thyme, rosemary, mint. Soft floodlights bathed everything in warm gold. The air smelled like summer even as autumn clung to the city below. He lowered her gently into a wide cushioned chaise overlooking the glittering Manhattan skyline. A cashmere throw waited, already warmed. He tucked it around her knees, then knelt beside her so their faces were level. "Feel," he said, guiding her wrinkled hands to the nearest planter. Her fingers brushed velvet rose petals, then cool leaves, then the rough bark of a young lilac bush. Her breath caught. Tears slipped silently down her cheeks. "A garden," she whispered, wonder threading through the words. "You remembered." "I never forgot," he replied, voice cracking open again. "I just stopped letting myself hear my own heart. I told myself the money would take care of you. That distance was kinder. I was wrong. So wrong." He took both her hands, pressed them to his still damp face. "I'm sorry, Mom, for every missed Sunday, every returned letter, every year I let you sit in the dark thinking I didn't care. I cared. I cared so much it scared me. Because caring meant facing what I'd become. I'll spend the rest of my life making this right. Doctors are coming tomorrow. The best specialists money can buy. Nurses if you want them. Or just me. I'll read to you every night. The Little Prince first, then whatever you want. I'll hold your hand until you fall asleep. And I'll never, never leave you in the dark again." Her trembling fingers traced his features once more. The strong jaw she had once kissed. The brow she had smoothed during fevers. "My boy," she whispered. "You came back. I should never have left." They sat like that for a long time. Mother and son. Billionaire and the woman who once sold her wedding ring for his future. While the city hummed far below, stars appeared above the light pollution. A breeze carried the scent of blooming night flowers. In the weeks that followed, he stepped back from the empire. Trusted deputies handled deals while he handled what mattered. Mornings became slow. Coffee on the terrace, her hand in his as he described the sunrise she couldn't see but could feel on her face. Afternoons, gentle therapies, new medications easing old pains. Evenings, stories. He read until his voice grew hoarse. Children's books that once put him to sleep. Then poetry she'd kept by her bed for decades. Zara came every Sunday, bringing her little sister. They ate simple meals together in the kitchen. No more private dining rooms. Family style now. She taught the elderly woman how to braid hair by feel. The elderly woman taught the child old lullabies. He watched it all with quiet awe, learning, finally, what family could be. New York noticed quietly. Headlines were kind for once. Redemption in real time. But he never spoke to reporters. The story wasn't for them. It was for the quiet nights when his mother reached for his hand in the dark and murmured, "I always knew you'd come home." And for the mornings when he kissed her forehead and whispered back, "I'm here, Mom, and I'm staying." One evening, as autumn turned toward winter, she sat on the terrace wrapped in blankets, listening to him read the final page of a favorite story. When he finished, silence settled, soft, healing. "Thank you for the garden," she said. He set the book aside, took her hand. "Thank you," he answered, "for never stopping loving me." The city lights glittered below like scattered stars. Above them, the real ones shone steady and sure. Some promises break, some hearts shatter, but the best ones, the truest ones, find their way home, one forgiven step at a time. And in that rooftop garden, two souls finally rested in the light they had both been searching for all along.